Good morning, everyone. It's Dr. Rick Wallace dropping in on you Sunday morning, the beginning of the week. For most of you, this is the day that you kick off your week one way or another. Some of you will use today as a day of recuperation and restoration. You will rest for the vast majority of the day, especially during the morning hours. Some of you are up right now preparing to go to your places of worship, whether it's the mosque, the temple, the church, whatever it is that you're going to do in that sense. I challenge you in just one way. Make it a point to walk out of the place a better person in the sense of knowing who you are, your purpose, your direction, and the power that lies within it. Then when you walk in, uh, look beyond the emotional charge, look beyond the fellowship, and see the power in what it is that you believe in. If you haven't accessed the power of your beliefs, then your beliefs are really void in the sense of producing what you're designed to do. You're not here by accident. You're not here for the sake of just surviving and getting through this life so you can get to something else. That's one of the greatest tragedies that I experience in this world are people who are simply dialed out of this life just because they believe it's something greater on the other side. I can't believe that a designer of the world, a designer of the universe with such great specificity and held in such honor over millions of years would design something and leave it in a place for 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years without it having a purpose. That's wasted time. Time was created to have purpose. 86,400 seconds in a day. How you invest in those seconds are going to determine where you end up. You're not here by accident. You're not here just to exist. Suffering is not your lot in life. Poverty is not your lot in life. But you have to be willing to tap into the power. You have to be willing to move beyond the rituals. You have to be willing to say, I'm going to walk out of here a better person, better equipped to hit the challenges of tomorrow, better equipped to take on. Because, see, let me say this, and then I'm going to move on into what I'm here to talk about. Look, 2012, I still do to a certain extent, not as much as I used to, but I was counseling a lot of pastors and church leaders, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. And one hit me, sizable church in Dallas, pastor of a sizable church in Dallas, and he had a question. First he told me, he says, Doc, I'm about to walk away. I'm about to just lay it down. I'm tired. I'm frustrated. I'm drained. And I'm like, what's the problem? And he says, I need you to answer a question for me because this is my dilemma. And his question was specific. Why are so many Christians? And then he added greater specificity to it. And so it applies to some and not to others. But he says, why is it that so many Black Christians live such defeated lives? If we serve a God, if we are the product of a God that's all powerful, and we walk around and we claim that this God indwells us, why are we so vulnerable? Why are we so weak? Why are we so unproductive? Why is it that we're not thriving? Why is it that we are consistently overrun, defeated, mishandled, mistreated? I'm tired. And I said, the answer, it's simple. The process is a struggle. And the answer is twofold. A misunderstanding of the true meaning of faith and a misapplication of the mechanism or tool of prayer. You have far too many Christian believers, especially, but in other areas of the faith, but we're talking about what he asked, that literally pray for things that they need not be praying and asking about. There's certain things you already know the answer to. You're praying and looking for an excuse not to have to do it, first and foremost. But the biggest failure in the use of prayer is that most Christians are praying, asking God to deliver them from the very giants he designed and created and sent them to slay. That's never going to happen. That's why you're sitting there. That's why you're stagnant, because you want that life of ease. You want that life of comfort. You don't want to stand up. You don't want to strive. You don't want to go out. You don't want to stand up and fight. All of the things that your mind and your mind and your heart is yearning is on the other side of the battle. You don't get to circumvent the battle, the process, the struggle, and have the promise. You're going to have to go to war every day. You're going to have to wake up. It's going to be somebody that don't like you in the workplace. If you're a business owner, you're going to have contractors that try to get over on you. You're going to have banks that don't want to finance you. You're going to run into challenge after challenge. People are going to try to exploit you and use you. That's life. Wake up, get ready, go to war. You were designed for it. You're built for it. You have everything within you to go out, but you're not going to get the designer, the creator, the God, the Almighty to sit up and deliver you from the very giants He put you here to slay. You have a purpose here. You can't circumvent the purpose. You can't pray your way out of the purpose. Now, you can ignore it and neglect it, but that comes at a price. The other thing is, faith is not this thing where you just simply say you believe. Faith is in its very necessity a catalyst of action. I don't let me get something you can understand. Like James says, hey, you show me your faith, without works. I'm going to show you my faith by my works. I look at what you believe in, not by what you tell me, but by what I see you doing. You say, I believe I can do anything, but I see you not trying a bunch of things you really want, but afraid you're going to fail at it. Where's the faith in that? See, faith isn't the saying I believe. Faith is the action that follows. So you need to make sure that you're tapping into the right source when you walk into your places of worship. Get your praise on. Do whatever it is you do. I'm not challenging any of that. But what I'm saying is, if all you get is an emotional charge and you walk out and that emotion drains, and by the time you get midday tomorrow, you're already looking forward to that next emotional charge next Sunday because you didn't walk out with something you can actually fight with, something you can actually stand up to the resistance and the energy, negative energy moving against you that you cannot avoid. You didn't tap in. You didn't get it. If you're not getting it there, find somewhere you can get it, because you're at war every day, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, and physically. And if you're not prepared and equipped, sitting up, quoting scripture, sitting up, raising your hand, sitting up, saying how good God is all the time, none of that's going to extract you from the challenges you're in. God put you here to put in work. And if you're not ready to put in work, you're going to have problems. So you can't talk your way through this one. You can't talk your way out of it. You're going to have to fight your way, work your way, push your way, stand your way. That's a part of life in every area, whether it's dealing with racism, whether it's dealing with oppression, whether it's fighting out of poverty, building wealth, starting a business, sustaining a marriage, parenting, whatever it is. It comes with challenges. It comes with hardships. It comes with delay. It comes with disappointments. There are those situations in which you can consistently reside in the corner of comfort and strive to have anything. You will not thrive in the corner of comfort. You're going to have to step out of your comfort zone. You're going to have to push out and step out on that faith you say you have. Faith is the stepping out on something that you say you believe without actually being able to touch it and see it. Well, I wasn't even planning on going there, but it's just when you look at so many people that claim to have this connection, but consistently live defeated lives. And it's not about what you have or where you're at. It's about how you engage in it, because you're going to get knocked down in life. You're going to get these points where what you have, it's not how much you have in the bank. It's not where you live. It's not where you drive. It's the manner in which you're engaging every moment and every opportunity, every situation in your life. You're going to have ups and downs. You're going to have setbacks. That's a part of growth. That's a part of life. That's a part of the training process. All of that's required to build inside of you. See, what you're going through now is building you for the next battle. And I don't care what your belief system is or what your faith system is. You've got to have something on which you stand and believe. You've got to have something that you can look at and say, I'm built for this. If you don't have a system of faith and belief that surrounds you, that you can look at any situation you enter and say with confidence, I'm built for this, you're going to have problems. You got to have something so primitive, so simple, and so certain that no matter what happens in your life, it doesn't shake you loose and make you become unglued because of what you're going through. And with me, It's the simple understanding that if I'm in this situation, I'm already prepared for it. I'm built for it. I look at my situations. I do not make it through life without having challenges. I have not achieved some of the things that I've encountered in life without challenges. I have not had situations. I have not made it through this life without setbacks, without losses, without disappointments, without failure. But what I can tell you is every time I face adversity, the first response to the moment of adversity, the difficult moment, whether it's a loss of a loved one, whether it's a setback in business, whether it's a setback financially, whatever it is, whether it's struggles of problems in parenting. You know, parenting is not something that you have perfected. You study trying to get this thing right, and you don't always make the right decisions, whatever it is. I simply look at myself in the mirror and I tell myself, you're built for this. Don't get shaken. You're built for this. Don't become nervous, frenetic, unglued, worried, anxious, discombobulated. You're built for this. That very understanding, that simple statement with the understanding that's associated with it settles me in anything I go through. Look, I don't care how bad it is, you're built for it. It's not going to be easy. It probably is going to hurt a little bit, but you're built for it. Then you stand up and you push through. Anyway, before I move into talking about designing your destiny, your destination, which is exactly associated with what we just talked about. But before that, we're doing at the Visionetics Institute, I'm right now doing free breakthrough rapid change sessions. I'm also doing some things with some business owners as well, which I'm representing on some of my other business channels. But for people who want to work on business, want to work on improving your life, want to work on being the best you can be in your marriage, in your parenting, in business, in your career, whatever it is, we're doing free rapid change sessions, which is something that's new, something suggested by one of my colleagues in the industry. Said, hey man, I noticed that you've been really wanting to tap into a market that's not really there, that doesn't really normally have access to you. Do that, and he says you're going to find that it's going to really, really help you, provide you with energy, but you're going to be able to touch some lives that you wouldn't normally be able to touch. And so I'm doing that. So that's all the information you need about it is in the description box or the post box. Fill out the questionnaire, real short question. I think it's like 10 questions. Fill it out, email it to that address, and somebody on the support team will contact you to schedule a time for a rapid change session with yours truly. Now that that's out the way, let's talk about designing your destination. If you've ever been on any type of serious interview, or if you sit down and you talk to someone about your visions, your dreams, your goals, what you aspire to, one of the you built a business plan. One of the questions that you have likely had to engage is the question, where do you see yourself now in 3 years? Where do you see yourself now in 5 years? I often ask that question a lot, not for the same reason, but it gives me an idea of how a person thinks. Well, the first thing that I notice about most people is when I ask that question, even if they have an idea of where they plan on being at that particular time frame, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is, it's real ambiguous. It's cloudy. It's not clear. If I ask them, what do you plan to be on in your relationship, they don't know. We're gonna have a great marriage. I'm gonna be married then. Married to who? Married where? Living where? Doing what? What will you be doing? What will she be doing? What will be the dynamic of the relationship? If you're talking about money, you're saying you're going to be financially successful. What does that mean? What number is on it? I need a specific number. I need the way it's going to be set up. Is it going to be in hard assets, liquid assets? I need to know all of that. Why? Because that's called visualization. The clearer you are in your vision, the greater understanding your subconscious and your non-conscious brain has of what it is you want, and the harder it will work towards getting it, and the more efficient it'll be. When you don't have clarity of where it is you're going, it's real hard to set your compass to get there. You could say success. Success is a real broad term. And and this is what happens also. When you set those ambiguous terms, you don't lock yourself into a real strong place of accountability. Why? Because I can define success as a lot of things. And if I'm not really striving for something that I really, really know I want, that has a great deal of specificity that I can literally put a finger on and say, this, I'm either here or I'm not, then when I'm really not doing what I'm supposed to do to get there, I can turn around and redefine it mid-term to meet where I'm at. So what I do is I start shrinking my goals to fit my reality. I start shrinking my aspirations to fit my reality instead of changing my convictions to fit my destiny. And see, see, sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves when we set. That's why it's so important to set goals that are clear, to have a clear vision of what you're going to be, where you're going to be in 5 years, where you're going to be a year from now, where you're going to be a week from now. You need to know, and you need to have a clear vision of, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be this. I'm going to have this. And it needs to be clear. You ought to be able to see it, envision it, touch it, smell it in your mind. You should be able to really experience it. And the clearer that vision is, the more you're able to experience it, the more it becomes a reality. It's like, I've heard it said before, man, a long time ago. I was probably a teenager when I heard this quote. I want to say it was from Jim Rohn, man. And he was quoting someone else, and I can't remember who he was quoting, but he said, decide what you want and then spend the rest of your time acting like you have it. And then the behavioral patterns that you create simply acting like you have it will eventually become ritual, eventually become habit, eventually become the processes and the patterns that will push you toward it. And that's something else. When you have an idea of what you want, you can determine the direction. Number one is when you set your destination, when you say, okay, 5 years from now, I'm going to be married, I'm going to own my own business, and I'll be doing this, this, and this. My net worth will be this. My assets will be primarily hard assets with some liquid assets, some movement in the market, some movement in real estate, and you've got it all kind of figured out, and you can see yourself operating in it and moving in it. But what happens is, if you just think about yourself in the physical sense, how you operate in the physical sense is how you operate in the mental sense. Mental sense just gives you greater capacity to actually achieve things and do things in different aspects. The mental aspect allows you to travel into the fourth and fifth dimensions and actually live in something that hasn't manifested yet in the third dimension. It's what you create spiritually with your thoughts. You're creating your reality and your destiny with your thoughts, ideas, the way you see things every day, because that's going to be reflected. Your thoughts are going to be reflected in your speech. Your thoughts are going to be reflected in your behavior, your habits, and the way you move, and they're going to be cyclical. They're going to circle around and reproduce themselves in greater force, either positively or negatively. If you're thinking negative, you're going to produce negative thoughts. You're going to negative results. That's going to make you more negative. If you produce more negative thoughts and get more negative results, and you spiral down. If you think positive, you're going to get more positive than you get negative. You think, and then you're going to start to work harder. You're going to start to strive for it. You're going to start to duplicate the processes and the patterns that produce the positivity, and starting with your thinking. So you're going to adjust your thinking to create that positivity, and you create this forward momentum moving up. So you're either spiraling down or you're building momentum moving upward. You're never stagnant. Stagnancy or being in a static situation or position is literally an illusion. You're either moving forward or going backwards. You're either going up or you're going down. The world and the universe we live in is always in motion. You are never, ever sitting still. And that's why it's important to design your destiny. Now, here's the thing is, the more you're able to visualize, from an energy perspective, from a mental perspective, design your future. A week from now, a month from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, you're designing it with what you think, what you say that you want out of life. The clearer you are, the more focused you are, the more you're able to engage it. This is different from fantasy. See, fantasy is just something that says it will be nice, and you get lost in it. When you have a vision, your vision is saying, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm going to do. This is who I am. And you're starting to tell yourself consciously and subconsciously what you are and who you are. Your mind, your non-conscious brain and your subconscious mind hears it and goes to work. And you got to understand, 90-something% of your behavior is handled by your non-conscious existence. It's your subconscious and your subconscious mind and your non-conscious brain that controls the vast majority of what you do. What you do now is almost on autopilot, almost always. Now, there are certain conscious decisions you have to make that will influence your non-conscious existence as it moves forward. But for the most part, you get up every day. Think about if you've had a kid or you a niece or nephew, you've watched this. They crawl. They go from not being able to be too mobile where they probably roll, and then they get to the point where they're scooting. Then they get to the point where they're crawling. Then they get to the point where they start to try to walk. And when they start to try to walk, they go for a couple of steps, and they're trying to really get their balance, and it's work. And you can see it. It's hard work for them. I mean, sometimes they got to put their hands up in order to get that balance. They're doing whatever it takes to get that balance. And then all of a sudden they get it, and they start to do it, and they start to do it. And then they become like you. You get up every day, get out the bed and walk to the restroom. You walk from the restroom to the kitchen or wherever, and you don't even think about balancing. You've trained yourself unconsciously to balance yourself automatically. It's not something you think about anymore. That baby's thinking hard about, man, I got to get this. I'm going to bust my butt. And they're thinking it's consciously on their mind, but it becomes a subconscious behavior and performance once they master it. And you've got all of these things in your non-conscious. But you decide what goes in, what isn't, what doesn't, and you create that. But here's the problem with most people: they either have ambiguous ideas of where they're going to be and what they want. I tell people all the time, what do you want? I want a successful marriage. What does that mean? A successful marriage. What does that mean? You want to have more intimate moments with your wife or your husband. You want better communication with your wife and husband. You want more understanding and sacrifice from your other spouse, or you want to be the person who's giving more sacrifice, who's more caring, who's more selfless than you are right now. What does it mean to have a more successful marriage? What does it mean to be financially successful? You need to put a number on it. You need to put where you're going to be at. Why? Because that's the direction you're going to head in. That's the mark you're hitting. You don't get in your car and say, I'm going to work, and say, well, I'm going to go to a building. You know exactly where that location is. That destination is clear in your mind before you take off. And a lot of times, these places that you've been to multiple times, because you've been there, you get there a lot of times without even remembering taking the trip. Because your subconscious mind and unconscious brain are processing all of the turns to take. It tells you when to stop at a red light. You're not even thinking about the red light. You just automatically see it. Your mind says stop. It's all these things are happening, but check this out. When you don't have that clarity, it's hard to get there. It's hard to set the pace. But when you set a destination, guess what happens? Just like when you are walking. Most people don't walk sideways. Every now and then you'll get somebody that's walking backwards for whatever reason. But most of the time, you walk in the direction you're facing. So guess what? When you create a destination and you look towards that destination, guess what direction you head in? You head in that direction. Here's the problem. If you don't design a destiny, if you don't take the time to design your own destiny, see, if you design a destiny, you end up at a well-designed destination. A destination that looks a lot like what you planned for, a lot like what you worked hard for, a lot like what you visualized, a lot like what you claimed and you stood in and you fought for. But because the world is dynamic, the universe is always moving. If you don't design a destiny, you end up in a not so well designed destination. In other words, you're going to end up somewhere else. And it's going to be a destination not of your choosing. And it's going to be a destination where you may not be driving what you want to drive. You may not be living where you want to live. You may not be working for who you want to work for. You may not be making what you think you ought to make. You may not be in the marriage you decided to be in. Why? Because being in a good marriage, just let's say marriage, being in a good marriage requires personal growth. It takes someone who is clearly grown, personal and whole in and of themselves before they try to merge and become one with someone else. It takes two whole people fixed and certain with similar values, with similar ideas, with going in the same direction, being willing to merge visions together and come together and create a synergistic force that allows them to build a family, to build a fortune, to build something that's impacting. That gives them the capacity to impact the world. It's part of the process. So look, when you don't set your destiny, when you don't design your own destiny, when you don't sit down to determine where am I going to be a week from now, And normally where you're going to be a week from now comes from you just sitting down and actually determine where I'm going to be 5 years from now. When I get to the age of, what do I want to have in the way of relationship? What kind of parent do I want to be? What kind of business will I be owning? How much will I be earning annually? How much of what I earn am I investing in my financial future, in building wealth? How am I constructing and operating in my life in that moment? How far have I gotten from where I am now? And determine what that is. When you don't do that, it's hard to determine where you're going to be next week. Because see, where you're going to be next week is a step closer to where you're going to be in 5 years. But if you don't know where you're going to be in 5 years, if you don't have an idea of what you want for your life in clarity, just moving day to day, you're all over the place because you don't know where you're going. When you don't know where you're going, you tend to be tossed to and fro. You have this life that's real capricious. One minute you're up, next minute you're down. 1 minute you're going for this, next minute for that. 1 minute you're going to be an entrepreneur. The next minute you're tired of that because it didn't work out, and now you're seeking a six-figure job. And it's all these ups and downs because you haven't committed to anything. You haven't designed a destiny for yourself based on your purpose, and you're just sitting around trying to figure out what to do on a day-by-day basis. Or you're in survival mode because you didn't plan 15 years ago to know what you were going to be doing today. So you're in survival mode. And you got to make a decision of what you're going to do to get out of survival mode, because survival mode will last forever if you don't get out of it. You can't change your life in survival mode. You got to literally exit it and start living and thriving based on where you're going and in your vision. And a lot of people are scared to leave survival mode because, see, things happen. You may be required to make some sacrifice. You may be required to let some things go. You may be required to take a little pain and a little hurt in order to get ahead. And most people don't want to do that. They end up in survival mode. They've been fighting just to get this done and get that done, and just making it, get this done, make sure the kids have this, make sure this is done, make sure, and it's done over and over again. You look up and it's 25 years, 30 years down the line, and you're still in survival mode because you didn't step out of it. And that's an entirely different thing. And it's hard because the sense of responsibility that we have will tell us what we need to do and how we need to do it. But the problem is, are we really being responsible if our life has been spent in survival mode? Are we truly representing our creator if we've never stepped outside of that comfort zone that doesn't even really exist and says, I'm going for it? It's designing your destiny. What I can tell you, and this is not me regurgitating some principle in a book. This is me taking what I was taught a long time ago. I mean, as a kid and as a teen, and then it was sculpted even more by my mentors in my early 20s. But I was taught. The first time I ever heard it was from a guy by the name of Earl Nightingale. My grandmother would buy me the LPs. For those who don't know what LPs are, they are the little vinyl albums that you put on what they used to call back then Victrolas. And then they started changing the name. It became a turntable and all that, but it was a Victrola. It was an all-encompassed thing. You put the album on, you put the needle on, you play it, and it gives you the sound. And I would listen to Earl Nightingale, and he would talk about the power of vision. He would talk about the importance of being able to see it, the importance of being able to direct it. And then he's known as the dean of, inspirational and motivational speakers. And out of that came Broad Proctor, Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, and on down the line to the guys we have now. And I followed all of them. I studied all of them. And I just started to practice a lot of what I didn't even understand at the time, that I now have a very clear understanding of, but I would just do it because, hell, if they're doing it and they're succeeding, I'm going to find someone who is doing what I want to do. I'm going to find the pattern that they've created, and I'm going to follow the pattern, because what I learned about patterns early in life, if a pattern works, it works. A pattern doesn't have a name on it. A pattern doesn't have a race on it. A pattern doesn't have a gender on it. A pattern doesn't have a faith, a religious faith on it. A pattern is a pattern. No matter who works the pattern, if you work the pattern with the same energy, the same fortitude, and the same resources, you get the same result. Some people will work the pattern and get there faster because they're starting from a different place. They've got a head start. They came up in a house where this happened, that happened, whatever, and maybe they've got a head start because they grew up in a house middle class instead of poverty. So one person will make it faster than the other person, or one person has a different level of beliefs in themselves. All of those things are going to determine the gestation period of the seeds you plant while you're on this pattern. But if you work the pattern, you stay on the pattern, you stay persistent, you're going to win. You're going to get the results that everybody else gets from the pattern if you follow the pattern. Life is about identifying patterns of successful people and following those patterns. It's also about identifying patterns of unsuccessful people and noticing the behaviors that you demonstrate yourself, and then dealing with those behaviors, saying, okay, man, I do that. Like, one of the biggest behaviors that is a constant pushback through striving for success is poor self-talk. The story you tell yourself over and over again, the story you tell other people about yourselves. Well, I'm not just good in that. I'm not really that good in that area. I suck in that area. I'm not very good at. I can't do. All these things that you consistently say about yourself to yourself and to other people. Your brain's eavesdropping on that. Your mind is eavesdropping on your self-talk. Your mind hears what you say about yourself. Your mind takes you very seriously. I can't win for losing. Boy, that held me down for about 2 years in my 20s. I got to a rough patch after my grandfather died, who was my adopted father. I got to a rough patch, and I found myself in a situation that I couldn't figure out why, after everything was going so smooth for a pretty good period of time, why was I struggling all of a sudden? Talked to my mentor, and he caught it in 30 minutes of just sitting down talking with me. He says, your talk. He says, I've been here with you 30 minutes, and already 3 times you sit up and you said, I can't win for losing. That is unbelievably powerful, because the moment I arrested that thinking, I arrested that way of talking, it immediately started to turn around. The momentum shifted. It wasn't moving against me, it was moving with me now, because I was reminding myself of who I was, what I was capable of, and that while I can't control external forces moving outside of myself, I have the absolute capacity to control and determine what I'm going to get out of each and every situation. And so it changed. And then I just reminded myself from this point on, no more negative self-talk. I don't care what I'm going through. I don't care where I'm at. I don't care how bad of a decision I make. And I make bad decisions. I make poor decisions. But no matter how bad it is, I'm never going to self-talk. I'm never going to say I'm stupid. I'm never going to say that was dumb. I'm never going to. Why? Because when you say that, you're speaking into your own existence, because your mind is eavesdropping on your self-talk. Stop talking yourself out of stuff. Stop talking yourself down. Even if you're not right now, vision yourself being there. Speak of yourself. Act as yourself. The Bible said that God calls things that are not as though they were, and He gave us the power to do the very things that He does. We are the only species on the planet that has the power to design and create our future. If you get a tree, and a tree is planted in a particular place, and for whatever reason, the nutrients in the soil in that place begin to diminish, the water supply in that place begins to diminish, and the tree can't get the nutrients. The tree doesn't have the choice of getting up and moving to a different location, but you do. If things start to dry out where you're at geographically, where you're at mentally, emotionally, where you're at in a relational sense, you have the ability to make a decision. This is not good for me. I'm going to get up and I'm going to change it. That's something you have. If you got animals in the Serengeti, and water holes begin to dry and it's not in their migration, you got geese that migrate south every winter like clockwork. They don't have a choice of whether I want to go west this year or whether I want to sit it out. It's not going to be a cold winter this year. I don't need to do all that flying. I'm gonna just sit right down here in Mexico and chill. I'm not gonna fly south. I'm just gonna chill. They don't have that choice. But see, you have a choice of where you want to be, where you want to go, what you want to do. You have volitional freedom to choose where you're at, choose what you're going to do, to choose how you're going to behave. That's something that you have a choice. So what does that mean? That means at the end of your life, what you have is based on what you chose. The decisions you're making or the decisions you're not making is going to have an influence on where you're at and what you're going to end up with. You are the only species on the planet that has the ability to change your reality when you decide that it is not working for you. So if you've been consistently and perpetually in it, that's a choice. You have chose to be in something that you're not happy with. That's suffering. I can't tell you how to avoid pain. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. Suffering is choosing not to do anything about the things you're not happy with. Suffering is choosing to sit there and wallow in the misery that's been created by a particular event instead of processing it, dealing with it, and moving on. Making a choice that this won't break me. Making a choice and a decision that this will only strengthen me and make me better. But you better start designing your destiny with great specificity, with the ability to talk about intricate details of where you're going to be in 5 years, in 10 years, in 2 years. Why? Because that's going to determine what you do today. That's going to determine what you do tomorrow. Everything I do on a daily basis is with where I'm going to be in the next month, in the next year. And everything I'm doing in any increment is about a bigger increment. If I'm looking 20, 30 years down the line of what I want and what I want to leave my family 40 or 50 years from now. And I've got it broken down in these increments. So while I'm striving right now to do something that's going to put me in a better position to be where I'm supposed to be a year from now, 5 years from now, what I'm doing to get to 5 years from now is to get me to where I want to be 50 years from now. But you better be able to write this in your mind. You better be able to create it and design it in your mind. You better be able to live in it in such clarity and realness that you can feel it, that you can smell it. Why? Because when you're able to design it and face it, you set your gate, you set your direction, you set your compass. You are now facing the direction you're walking in. You're facing your destiny, so you're walking toward it. But if you don't have a destiny set, or your destiny is real ambiguous and you really can't talk about it in any great specificity, that broadens where you're headed. Even if you say, I want to be successful in marriage and finance. But say, for instance, there's this triangle that represents what all that means. And some of it says communication, some of it says liquid assets, some says hard assets, real estate assets, stocks, other indexes, all this other stuff in the finance world. Some of it says parenting. And so all of this represents success. This area. Now over here is mediocrity, over here is average, back here is failure. But this all represents success. But you can only go in one direction. Or in a situation. Well, I want to have this. The more clearer you got, the straighter the line you can draw. That doesn't mean you're going to stay on that line because you're going to get knocked off, but you're going to be able to recorrect over and over again because you're going to set your mental thermostat to who you are, what you're going to become, and where you're headed. And you're going to consistently correct yourself over and over again as you move toward it. But the thing is, you've got to have something to set into your thermostat as the actual temperature of the life you want to live. You see, your brain and your mind is a cybernetic organism, meaning that when you set a thermostat, when you set it somewhere, you can change up one way or the other, and you'll have things that'll knock you off course that'll change. Just like if you set the thermostat in your house, if it gets cold outside, the temperature in the house will drop, but the thermostat will recognize the change, flip on the heater, and raise the temperature. Conversely, if you set it at a degrees and it gets warmer, it'll turn on the AC and cool it down until it gets that desired temperature and it turns it off. It's designed to get you right back where you want it. Well, the same thing happens with your mind. Whatever you believe about yourself, or wherever you sit up and say, I am right now, who I am right now, that's your thermostat. And if you don't change that, if you don't set it for where you want to be 5 years from now, you're going to consistently operate where you are right now. You're going to consistently get the same results. Now, what will happen is with people who attempt to lose weight, people who attempt to go out and accomplish something in business, or accomplish something in wealth building, or whatever, they get these temporary advances, then they fall back. They lose weight, then they gain it back. What is actually happening? You are taking on a behavior without changing the thermostat. So the behavior in and of itself produces a result. But the problem is when things get hectic, when things get out of whack, when you have to go back to operating in autopilot, that's how you live, that's how you function, you're going to go back to the setting of your thermostat. So if your eating habits are poor, If you have a sedentary lifestyle, you're not exercising, you're not eating properly, you're not doing all the things that result in good health, proper weight balance, all the stuff like this here, you'll get the results temporarily, but you're going to revert back to the thermostat setting. Same things with your finances, same things with your marriage. You can talk about doing all these great things for your wife or your husband, and you'll do it for a while. You'll come home early from work sometime. You'll have the bath water ran, or you'll cook if you're a man, or whatever it is that you do to let your mate know that you really care about them. Or you'll be real good at listening. You'll show a lot of patience in areas. You know, we all got them things we really ain't trying to hear, but we know that it's our responsibility that they need us to listen. Well, you'll do it for a while, but if you're not really truly setting the thermostat to be that person, I'm going to be, or I am a person who will give to my wife, or I am a person who will give to my husband, or I am a person that will make more sacrifices for them than I make for myself. I am a person that's going to put my spouse first. If you don't set the thermostat and you just change the behavior, as life starts to kick in and take over, at some point in time, the thermostat is going to realize your behavior doesn't match where you got the settings, and it will make the correction. And you will end up back doing what you did, and you'll wonder, why is it keeps happening? They're going to interpret it as you really don't care. No, you didn't go through the proper processes of change. You just changed the behavior without changing the thermostat. That's like letting in cold air when you got the heat on and the thermostat set at 78 and letting air in. Yeah, it's going to cool down the house, but the thermostat is going to change all that. As soon as it realizes you let that air in and that the temperature isn't what it's set on, it's going to turn the heat on. And it's not going to turn the heat off until it gets to that temperature. Now, if you want to change the temperature and make it cooler, you don't let the cold air in with the thermostat set on at 78. You lower the thermostat to 72. And then the thermostat takes care of it from that point on. That's how you design your destiny. You set your thermostat to perform at the level that you're saying you want to live at. There's a process you go through with that. But you have to be willing to set your thermostat. You have to be willing to design your destiny. I'm going to say this and then I'll be done. Like I said earlier, if you don't design your destiny with great specificity, with great clarity, then you're going to end up 5 years from now at a point that you didn't design, that you didn't create, that you didn't set the course for. And it might not be what you want. It's likely not going to be what you want. And a lot of the things you say you want, you know, a better life, a better marriage, better finances, better financial situation, a better home, better car, your own business, all these different things are not simply going to fall out of the sky. They're going to have to be a part of a design that you create. And you're going to have to schedule it in 90 days and 100 days and in a year and 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. You've got to schedule it, because when you schedule it, you make it real. When you schedule it, you put a date of accountability on it. In other words, this is specifically what I want. It's not ambiguous, so I can't sit up and redefine it later to fit my reality. It's exactly this number. It's exactly this behavior. It's exactly this state or status. And this is what I want. And this is the date I'm going to have it at. Well, the status determines where you're headed. The date determines the accountability. In other words, now you just can't consistently keep putting it off because I'm going to get to it when. I'm going to do it when. No, see, now it's got a date of accountability, and you know that because of what you've set, you got certain work that has to be done now to make sure that you're prepared to do what you need to do next month, so that you're prepared to do what you can do next year, so that when you get here 5 years from now, all of it's done. That's accountability. And so what you have to understand is you've got this unique gift given to you by the designer to design and create your destiny and your future. To literally evaluate where you're at right now in life and determine if that is what you feel you deserve. And the thing is, that's one side of it. And I always deal with my clients with both sides. The other side of it is discover your purpose. Discover what's in your design that determines your design is indicative of your purpose. When you study your design, when you study your natural giftings, your natural yearnings, your natural talent, it will tell you what your purpose is. Like any design, if you study any design of any little piece of furniture in your house, if you look at it long enough, it'll kind of tell you what it's meant for. Same thing with you. When you look at your design, you're different than anyone else. You have some uniqueness about yourself that makes you invaluable in this world. And one of the things that we do that really hurts us as a collective, as a social environment, is that we try to make everybody fit into the one same box. Everybody act, behave the same, learn the same, talk the same, do the same, and all of this stuff, when we may not be tapping into their unique gifting by doing that. It is the parent's responsibility to look at the child and see what makes this child better than the first child. I mean, not better, different than the first child. What makes this child unique from the second child? And to learn how to work with them and develop them so that they're using their gifts and their talent to be an influence and an impact early in life, so they're trained to go out and make a difference in the world around them. That's what you should be doing with your gifting. That's what you should be doing with your design. That's what you should be doing with your planning. Yes, it's important to advance yourself in wealth, advance yourself in capacity. Why? Because the more you're not worrying about what's going to be paid, the more you have to give and to touch lives in other ways. Obviously, the more resourced you are, the more you're going to be able to do to help other people. And then that just simply comes back to you in a number of different ways. One of the ways is financially, the other ways is relationally. In so many different ways, you're going to get what you put out, what you plant in the lives of other people. But if you don't have the capacity to do so because you're so stressed out, you're so worried, you're so anxious, you're so frustrated because this is where I'm at life, and oh man, every day is just a struggle. Oh my God, take me home. How many times I heard that growing up? I'm like, really? I mean, I don't fear death at all, but I ain't aiming for it. It's gonna have to come get me. I mean, when it happens, it happens. But the one thing I want to be able to say I do when death does come to my door, when death does come and reach out for me, I want to say that I lived life on full and I died on E. I gave life everything I had. I didn't leave one dream, one vision, one book, one lecture, one life untouched. If it came into my mind and it has had a purpose or opportunity to help other people or to help my family or to better position me to be more impactful in this world, I'm going after it. I'm not going to cower down behind comfort. I'm not going to sit around and wait on the right opportunity. I'm not going to sit on and look for the approbation and approval of other people to tell me it's okay, that I can do it. The fact that I can conceive it in my mind, it's God's evidence to me that it's possible, and that's all I need. It's so much I don't need to pray about because I've taken the time to get to know God in the way I know him. And it's a bunch of things I don't have to ask. My teenage kids don't have to come ask me, is it okay if they can stay out after midnight? They already know the answer to that. That's wasted time. They don't have to come ask me, can I have something to eat out of the kitchen? They know if it's in there and it's not mine, they can have it. You know, not we try to get them not to go crazy, but you know, hey, another story. But look, they don't have to. Why? Because if you need it and I've provided it, it's yours. You don't have to ask me, can you have it? It's in there for you. It's in there to nurture you, to provide the nutrients you need, to provide the support you need so that you can be strong, so that you can learn, so that you can grow. You don't have to ask me for that. The same thing. If it's out there and it's good and you can do good with it, it will not be withheld from you if you make the decision to go get it. The moment that you make the decision to go get it and you commit to it, the universe begins to move with you, conspire on your behalf to bring you the very things you say you want. But you got to commit. You got to make a decision, not looking at how I'm going to do it, but simply that I'm going to do it. Commit. Design. Stand up and stop designing from the position of colorless dreams and dwarf goals and what people say is possible. Nothing done that has become great was done from a platform of the belief of the masses that it was realistic or that it was possible. It was always somebody going beyond what was expected or believed possible to do something extraordinary that made it possible. I think it was Nelson Mandela, and I could be wrong, but I think it was Nelson Mandela that said, everything is impossible until you do it. Until it's been done the first time, everything is considered impossible. Everything you're looking at around you was once considered impossible, from the phone to the cell phone to the car to the plane. All of it was considered impossible. Some of the unbelievable things we're able to do athletically was once considered impossible. The way we're dealing with subatomic matter right now in quantum physics was once not even thought of or understood or known. And now we're dealing with consciousness on a level no one ever even thought of. It's up to you, but you're going to have to make a decision of whether or not you're going to take control of your destiny. You're going to design your destination. You're going to set the pace, the gate, the direction you're traveling in. And it's real simple. If you don't set it, you're going to end up somewhere, because life is dynamic. The universe is consistently moving. You're going to end up somewhere, but you're going to end up somewhere that you didn't dictate, that you didn't set, that you didn't designate. And it's probably not going to be what you want. And then you'll probably end up complaining about how life sucks and all this. And then it'll be another 5 years of something else. It's when you determine that I'm going to do something differently, that I'm going to sit up and determine where I'm headed. Now, am I in any way telling you that when you do that, life's just going to get easy and everything? No, what I'm telling you is, once you set your mind on having anything of any real, true, substantive value, you're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to put in work. You're going to have to be consistent. You're going to have to be committed, because you're going to get knocked down. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fall back. You're going to look up, and you're going to have people talking about you. You're going to have people closing doors. You're going to have all kind of different social mechanisms and machinations in place that work against you. You're going to work against yourself sometime. All those things will happen. And if you're not committed, you will automatically revert back to what's comfortable. It's in the commitment to saying, you know what, I'm going to push through this. Everything that's coming my way, I'm going to push through this, and I'm going after what I believe I should have, and I'm going and I'm going to do A, B, and C with it when I get it. And the motive behind it is more important than anything else. Selfish motives stifle, suck the air out, and constrict the capacity of your potential. I mean, if you're good enough, you're smart enough, you'll still get it. But it constricts it, because it's not working with the natural flow of the universe. The natural flow of the universe is to plant, not just in your yard, but in the yard of other people, in the minds and the lives of other people, to help and uplift, to encourage, to empower, to share with in many different ways, in whatever ways that you have the personal capacity to share. And what you find is that the universe takes that into consideration, and it comes back to you. A lot of the times that the things that come back to you, that the universe brings as a part of your harvest, doesn't come from some of the places you planted. Some of the people whose lives you touch will never be able to come back to you and touch your life in the magnitude in which you touch theirs. But it'll come to you. The law of cause and effect cannot be shifted. When you want something, understand the pattern, the cause of how it comes, you create it. You want to stop something, understand the pattern and the cause, and interrupt it. You interrupt the pattern, you change the results. It's real, to the point, but it takes commitment. If there's anything that I could leave you with right now, it's commitment. Find something you want so badly that it shakes you every day when you wake up. It causes you some nights to just toss and turn. You just know it's meant for you. And you might not know how you're going to get it. You might not have the strategies and the answers, but you just know. Find that thing and commit to it. And determine, you know what, I'm going for it. And then work your way towards it. Find your way. We're naturally able to start to do things because of the power of our mind, that I may not have an idea of how to do A, B, or C, but if I decide and really truly commit to it and make it my point to be that, the moment that I make that commitment, providence begins to move. The universe begins to react. Certain things that I don't know, that I'm not an expert in, I will meet the expert, or I will meet the person who knows the expert. I will find a way to make things happen. That's just the way the universe operates. When you step out beyond your comfort zone, beyond what you already know, beyond what you understand. And lastly, it's all about becoming what you desire to have. You can't get what you want, you get what you are. If you want to be this or that, or have this or that, or do this or that in your marriage, you have to become that person. You can't perform certain things without being a person capable of performing them. You simply become, you simply challenge yourself to grow every day. You simply challenge yourself to be better today than you were yesterday, finding ways to grow in the areas that mean the most to you intensely. And if you're really focused, you're trying to grow in an expansive and comprehensive manner where all of you is advancing. But you're going to always feed your strengths naturally. So I try to pay attention to my weaknesses. Your strength, when you go on a basketball court, you hoop it, or if you shoot pool or whatever it is, you're going to tend to lean towards your strengths. When you're on the court, you're going to do what you do best most. It's in challenging yourself to try to do the things that you're not good at, to get better at, to strengthen the whole of you. It's in focusing on the things that you're not good at, that you're not strong in developing in that and learning that and growing that, creating a holistic part of you that creates this natural equilibrium where there's harmony in every aspect of your life. That's when you find this peace. That's when you find this sense of fulfillment and this consistency in your emotional state. It's when you create equilibrium across the board. It's when you don't have that equilibrium that you have what's known as this dis-ease, which is disease. So you have disease emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and physically, and it comes from disequilibrium. So when finding that holistic place where all of you is in harmony with yourself, with your inner self, you find that you will naturally heal, you will naturally detox, you will naturally grow, you will naturally become stronger. All of the things that you've been looking at, that you think you got to have this, and this, and have, you'll find that you were designed with it all. You just got to learn how to access it and use it to your benefit. With that being said, I've stayed on a lot longer than I had planned, but hey, it is what it is. As I always say, I'm going to Down E. For those of you who want to take advantage of the rapid change session, free rapid change session, fill out the questionnaire, email it to the email address on there. Somebody from support team will respond within 24 hours and we'll get the ball rolling. With that being said, I'm out of here. You guys have an unbelievable Sunday, and doing whatever it is you do, enjoy yourself, but make life purposeful today. Whether you're relaxing, whether you're going to your place of worship, whatever it is, make it purposeful. Make sure that you have something you're getting out of every second of the day. With that being said, I'm out of here. You guys have an awesome one. Peace.